The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening and welcome to the Holland State Park Phase 2 General Management Plan virtual public meeting. I'm Debbie Jensen and I'll be facilitating the meeting this evening. We still have a few people joining us and we're just a little shy of 6. So I thought whilst we're waiting for everyone to get situated, I'm just going to type a question into the question panel. What do you like most about Holland State Park? And if people would like to add their responses, it'll just give us a little flavor for what you like about it. You should see the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen, so feel free to enter anything in there, and we will begin in a few moments when we've given everybody a chance to join. Okay, Greg is the first one. He says he likes bird migration. All right, well, it is a few minutes after 6, so we will get the meeting started. Again, welcome to the Holland State Park Phase 2 General Management Plan virtual public input meeting. This meeting is to present and gain input on long-range planning for Holland State Park, and it will follow a similar format to our in-person meeting that we would normally have as part of this planning process. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available within 1 week after the meeting. All participants are automatically muted. If you have any technical difficulties or would like to ask a question, please type it into the questions panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. As a reminder, when signing in, you had an option to join with audio through your computer or by calling the number provided. We suggest that you don't do both at the same time. That will cause some audio issues. So let's start by introducing you to the core planning team. I'm Debbie Jensen, the DNR Park Management Plan Administrator. It's my job to complete management plans for state park and recreation areas across the state that guide long-term management. I've been in this position for, about 8 years now, but before that I worked for a private landscape architecture firm and did a lot of work in the Holland area, including the Mount Pisgah Dune Climb project. So it's fun to kind of be on the other side of the fence now. Matt Lincoln will be making the presentation today. So Matt, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Lincoln, and today I'm the Park Management Planning Assistant, but I'm also the grant coordinator for the Parks and Recreation Division and the land specialist. I am also a landscape architect, working about the same amount of time with the DNR. Prior to that, I had did a lot of park plans and stuff for a local firm in Lansing. So,
Sean, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Sean Mulligan. I'm the unit supervisor for Holland State Park. I've been with the DNR Parks and Recreation Division since August of 2000. I actually started as a seasonal ranger right here at Holland, and I returned here as a supervisor in 2015. So I'm looking forward to getting input here. This is the first time I've done a general management plan, so I'm looking forward to getting the public's input and see where we can steer this park.
Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. Joe Strzok. I'm the planner for the southwest part of Michigan, and I've been with the DNR for going on almost 20 years. And my primary role is to assist Sean and his park staff with any type of improvement projects in the park.
And Greg?
Hello, everyone. Greg Norwood. I serve as the ecologist for the stewardship unit within Parks and Recreation Division. So my purview is the natural resource management issues. Planning the conservation efforts, protection, restoration, management of those natural resources, rare species, natural communities that we have there. So that's my purview. And yeah, I come from a few years with the DNR, and before that, about a 10-year career with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a wildlife biologist. So yeah, looking forward to this. Thanks.
Okay, and unable to join us today is Gary Jones, who's the Plainwell District Supervisor. And then before we get going, let's just go back to that introductory question. I apologize. These virtual meetings are a little new to all of us, and it's a learning curve. And your responses, I thought I was kind of talking to an empty room for a minute there, but your responses came in a different place to where I was looking. So just so that you can all hear some of these, Steve thanked us for opening the meeting to the public. And some of the things people like, the waves, the beach is my favorite part, but it's all good. I like the history of the park, the access to the pier and the breakwater, playground, viewing boats and the channel, playground again, the expensive beach, and the broad beach, the clean water, and the parking close to the beach. So there's more comments there too, which we will put, keep a record of all the comments that came in. So with that, this is the format for the meeting this evening. Matt will be making a presentation on the planning process and the content of the Phase 2 General Management Plan, which will take approximately 30 minutes. We'll then have a question and answer session. Please feel free to type in your question at any time. I promise I now know where the question box is. We will prefer to address the questions at either specific times in the presentation or at the end of the presentation. But if something comes to mind and you don't want to forget it, type it in at any time. And with that, I will hand over to Matt.
All right, thanks, Debbie. Okay, so just to give everybody an overview of the process, the management planning process, and what all goes into these plans when we develop them. We start with a review of the supporting analysis, which was done back in 2010 with the Phase 1 plan that was developed. The supporting analysis basically gives everybody an idea of how the park fits within the context of the region. We look at everything from demographics to geology to climate to natural resources in the area, other recreation opportunities in the area. That's all important. The economy, all of those are important aspects of how the park fits in with that regional context. We also seek public and stakeholder input, part of what this meeting is about. And then we have several team members that we hold several meetings. Those team members are made up of representatives from each DNR division. So everybody brings their own level of expertise into the plan. And then that is what informs the plan. So the planning timeline for this Phase 2 process is about 6 to 9 months. We started back in November of 2019 by reviewing the supporting analysis, holding our initial planning meetings, internal planning meetings. We had our stakeholder meeting in January. We started developing the draft plan, and now we are looking for your input today in August. So we are hoping that by fall we will have a final plan produced. So these are the core components of a general management plan. They all speak to the DNR's mission. It all pertains to the DNR's mission, which is in essence balancing access to recreation but also protecting the natural resources that we have. The first three components of the management plan were done in 2010. That's the phase one plan. So that first item there, we identified the core values and guiding resources, those mission statements, the legal mandates that guide, tell us what we can and can't do, and the impact of the land use. The second component is identifying the park's purpose and significance. So that is really what is unique about the park, what makes the park special, why was it established in the first place, and that really gives a good foundation for the rest of the planning process. The third component is we identified the 20-year management zones. So they're good for 20 years. The management zones define the expectations and the level of resource protection with development and park use. So it's, again, that balancing act between access and park recreation and natural resource protection. Those management zones are similar to your local municipal zoning maps, and I'll show you an example. I'll show you that in a little bit. And then the fourth component, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is the 10-year action goals. So that's what this process is really, that started back in November. What we are establishing now is, what do we want to do in the next 10 years? What do we want to accomplish? And so those are the goals that we have established, that we're going to be establishing with your input. So just to give everybody an overview of the park, obviously if you've been to the park, you're probably pretty familiar with it, but for those of you who haven't, it's about 140 acres. Located on the north side of the Holland Channel that connects Lake Michigan with Lake Makatawa, about 4 miles west of City of Holland. It was originally acquired in 1926 after the Ottawa Beach Hotel burned. The locals, as well as the state, recognized that the land should be protected because of the scenic beauty and its location on Lake Michigan. The park contains 2 units with a swimming beach, 2 modern campgrounds, access to Lake Makatawa and the Holland Channel. And it has you can do several recreation activities at the park, including scenic viewing, hiking, fishing, birding, swimming, camping. So back in 2010, when we did the phase one plan, we established, with input from the public, the significance of the park. So what makes this park unique? Well, Holland State Park is one of the most visited parks in the state park system, so it is a popular park. The sand dunes are obviously significant. There are critical dunes located in the park, and those are important to protecting the coastal wildlife. As I mentioned before, the history of the park, beginning as a resort in the 1880s. And fishing. Fishing is also very popular, especially along the channel. Those are the popular species there: walleye, salmon, and muskie. Scenery, a lot of people come out here to view the gorgeous sunsets, the dunes, the view of Big Red against the backdrop of the lake. And the local partnership that we have with Ottawa County. When I pull up a map here in a few moments, you'll notice that Ottawa County does have parks, a parkland that kind of mixes in with the state park. So when you're visiting, you could be on county park land as opposed to state park land. But we work really close with Ottawa County Parks to make sure that those that relationship and that the public doesn't see those boundaries, and that it's a seamless recreation opportunity. And of course, the recreation variety that I mentioned earlier, several different activities that can take place here in Holland. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions regarding the process, the management planning process?
There have been none come in on the process, Matt, yet. I do have some questions which we will address, but we'll complete the presentation first. Thanks.
Okay, great, thanks. So we do have several methods of gleaning public input for the plan, because this is your plan, this is your park. So you are really what's guiding the goals that we have established. Back in 2018, we did do an on-site public survey, and I'll share with you some of those results in a moment. We had the stakeholder input workshop where we invited members of organizations affiliated with the park. Those could be local units of government, as well as other organizations. I can also share with you those results. And then today, virtual public input meeting that we're having today. So we're hoping to get more input today. And then also the web page where you do have the opportunity to email comments into me, which I have also already gathered quite a few. So the more input we have, the better. And we will make sure that we take all of those into consideration as we move forward in finalizing the plan later. So the on-site survey results in 2018, we had 259 responses. The average time people spent in the park was 4.9 hours. Satisfaction rate was 8.2 out of 9, which seems pretty darn good. Camping was a bit lower. Some of the comments that we received was due to the aging infrastructure there. And really, when we asked the poignant question of what do you want changed at the park, the majority of people like the park the way it is. They really don't want to see any major changes take place. This graph shows you day use visitors and campers and what they like to do. Day use visitors really enjoy scenic viewing and hiking and swimming and sunbathing. Campers tended to spend more time hiking and camping and biking. This also shows how the park fits within the context of the regional economy. This is how many dollars were spent that people said when they visited the park, what else they spent their money on. So you can see that it does play an important role in the local economy here in Holland. As far as the stakeholder input that we received, we asked questions, what are the strengths of the park? What are the weaknesses? What are some of the opportunities that we have to improve the park? And these are some of the items that came out of that. So a lot of people really talked about the scenic part of the park, the special programs that are done here, the fishing, the trails, the park staff as strengths. The big weaknesses that were identified were the consistent traffic backups during busy periods, the aging infrastructure in the campgrounds, warnings for the pier came up. We can talk about that in a little bit, and what we're doing currently for that. And then the fire, it was also brought up the fact that there is some fire risk with the fact that our campground is nestled within the dunes on the beach. Some of the opportunities that people identified were extending the channel walkway. It's very popular when it isn't underwater for fishing. Potential for alleviating traffic congestion with some sort of a shuttle service was talked about. Smart signage, upgrading the fence that runs along the campground, the Meketawa campground, and improve partnerships and volunteer efforts. So those are some of the things that were identified. So now, before we get into the action goals, I wanted to give you a brief overview of the Phase 1 plan and what was done in 2010. Excuse me. These are the management zones. This kind of just shows you the palette of 9 zones that we use when we establish these zones, and it really shows it goes from ecologically sensitive, which is the most pristine, restricted. You're going to expect to not see too many people in those first two zones, ecologically sensitive and primitive, all the way to developed recreation, where it's very active, very highly developed management. That's where our campgrounds and day use areas typically take place. As far as Holland goes, we had 5 that we ended up using. This is the plan. Or this is the map, the management zone map. You can see the light green is all, this is where our critical dunes are located. We do have a few scenic overlooks or vistas here and some of the higher peaks of those dunes. The day use area and the campground areas is what you see in red, as well as the scenic, recognizing that there is scenic viewing opportunities here along the lake shore. A lot of people like to just come in and view those sunsets at night or in the evening, just parking their cars, even in the wintertime. The lake shore along Lake Makatawa is natural resource recreation, recognizing that it is it is the only real natural shoreline along Lake Makatawa there, and so trying to keep it more natural there, which is why it's zoned that way. And then what's in yellow is our park headquarters and shop area. So one of the other things that we do with the Phase 2 plan is we look at our project boundary for the park. Our project boundary is what is dashed line right, the dashed yellow line right here. It basically shows what we would like to own should the adjacent landowners want to wish to sell in the future to better our mission. The only major change that we have here for that boundary would be this small parcel down here in the pink. Should those owners ever decide to sell in the future, we just want to kind of make sure that they talk to us, because and it's really the reason why we have this in here is because a lot of people use that area to access Mount Pisgah. It would be nice to and recognizing that we have limited capacity for parking for the park. What you see in brown there is Ottawa County parks. So you can see that there is that really bridges that gap between our 2 units, and we share seamless trails.
Hey, Matt, if you just want to hold it there for a minute, there have been a couple of comments or questions regarding land acquisition. One comment: I support and encourage expansion of the park. I support purchase of more property near or adjacent to Holland State Park. Please collaborate with the Land Conservancy to preserve and protect more areas near the park. And I believe there was another one on the same topic. Yeah, so does the state have plans to collaborate with Nature Conservancy or other public-private nonprofit partners to acquire other land in Ottawa County or Allegan County near Lake Makatawa? And also an idea of potentially like a 3rd unit for the park.
Yeah, certainly we are interested. As the land guy, you know, I would email me if you have any ideas of what of how you would want the park to expand. We will certainly look into that. We do also look into partnerships with other with land conservancy. This map just shows how the park was acquired. Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund land in green, and special legislation was the original piece down there by Lake Michigan and Lake Makatawa. Okay, so now let's get into the action goals based on the feedback that we received from our stakeholders and our on-site survey and listening to our other colleagues in other divisions. So our action goals are split up into 4 different categories. And I'm going to kind of go through these one by one. If you can hold questions at the end, we will get your comments at the end of this, and you will also have the opportunity to fill out a survey at the end of this meeting, which will allow you to provide further comment, whether or not you agree with these goals, whether you disagree, whether you would like to see more goals added. Those types of things. So the 10-year action goals that we've established under management and operations, the management and operations category, we want to continue to work with volunteer partners to assist with beach cleanup efforts. We do want to continue the Explorer Guide program in the park and providing educational opportunities for visitors. We have we want to create a stewardship plan, and that's where Greg he assists with those and does those, and really looking at those natural resources and how we can make sure that those natural resources are protected in the park. We want to look at a visitor use management study. One of the things, obviously, that we want to look at addressing is traffic flow, and not only vehicles, but also bicycles and pedestrians. How can we better serve visitors and making more efficient traffic flow and use of our park? So we want to look at how people are using the park now and see if there's any ways we can improve that. Another idea that came in was possibly exploring an AM radio station or interactive application to convey real-time park information. Kind of like, just to inform people of like traffic or beach safety items. Sean, if you want to talk a little bit more about what we are currently doing with beach safety. The AM radio station idea came about because it was something that the park actually had a while back and discontinued. And so we thought, well, with some of the real-time information we need to convey to people and visitors, it might be something worth looking into again. Sean, did you want to talk a little bit more about what DNR and our partners are doing currently with regards to beach safety?
Yeah, and again, this is something that's more of an immediate need, and that's why we don't really have a lot of it in the general management plan, because it's something we're looking to address in the short term rather than in the long term. Things that we've already done. We've built some new emergency information kiosks that we're putting out on the beach. We've got one out already, and we've got 2 more that are in production. We've got a script for our staff in the booth. When we have Red Flag Day, they actually go to this script for everybody they're selling passports to make sure they know it's a red flag. We tell them to steer clear of the pier, stay safe, stay out of the water. We also have done a PSA, excuse me, actually our second public service announcement in cooperation with the City of Holland and the local emergency services. Every time we post on our Facebook page red flag conditions, we attach that latest PSA to that message on Facebook. It's a short little PSA, but very powerful. So if you're familiar with our Facebook page, you can jump on there and see that on some of our past posts. We've also partnered with the City of Holland to get a webcam placed, and I should say we're also partnered with the City of Holland, the NOAA Weather Service, and the Army Corps of Engineers to post a webcam, a live webcam, where you can actually see a portion of our beach and see the flag conditions live. So they can also give people another resource to check conditions before they come out. We're also meeting, we've begun regular meetings with township and local emergency services representatives and developing more ideas, looking for other ideas that we can do to increase safety on our beach. Some of the things that we're already working on are our concerns on this front go all the way up to the division chief, and he's helped us secure funding to get a message board that we'll have specifically for this park, and it'll serve two purposes. It'll be able to help us convey traffic conditions and parking lot conditions, but more importantly, the beach flag conditions. We're also working on getting a PA system installed. That way, when we do have times when we change flags, we can make those announcements on the beach, get everybody's attention to make sure they're aware of changing conditions. We're also working with an individual that came to us with an idea for site-specific signage that not only talks about the dangers of dangerous currents in the Great Lakes, but it's specific to our park and the dangerous structural currents and drop-off zones that exist in our park. We're also looking at some flip-down signs so that when we go to a red flag condition, we can flip these signs down at the edge of our parking lot where most people walk by to get to the beach. That would also reiterate the conditions on the beach. And then, of course, there's several things that we're looking into. We acknowledge the fact that more often than not, when we have a fatality out here, it's somebody that's not from the area. It's somebody that's not familiar with the power of the Great Lakes. So we're talking with our division who's trying to reach out and maybe develop a informational pamphlet that we can distribute out to local motels, hotels, bed and breakfast, those types of things, as well as teaming up with Department of Transportation to get those kinds of flyers out to the welcome centers, so people coming across the state line, if they're stopping there, hopefully they can gain some knowledge on the flag systems and how important it is to heed the warnings of the flag systems. We also realize that there are other people that we can collaborate with, other ideas that are out there. And so if anybody has any of those ideas or partnerships, I encourage you to please contact me either by phone or through my email. I just received a couple of them today, and I'm following up on all of them, and I'll be sending them, up my upline so we can have a discussion within our division and try and figure out those things that we can do to increase our safety. It's always a big concern for us, always has been, even when I was a seasonal ranger just starting here. Things were a lot different back then, but we still had problems with fatalities. So anything we can do to move that ball forward to help reduce the loss of life in any body of water, but particularly along the Great Lakes, we're definitely interested in doing. So.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, this is really a collaborative effort. There are several stakeholders involved. Sean mentioned NOAA. The U.S. Army Corps owns the seawall along the channel. There's Park Township and Ottawa County that are involved. So several people all working collaboratively to try to improve this, improve beach safety here. Sean, I had one question about the message board. Is that electronic, or do you know how that?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it's going to be an electronic message board. It'll be mobile.
Okay.
I think it's programmable with different messages, and I believe we'll be able to access it remotely. And our intent is to place it along Ottawa Beach Road right around 168, so we can get the attention of folks before they're actually, when it comes to parking or anything like that, we can hopefully catch them before they're trapped in the line and turn off at 168. And then, of course, to forewarn people of beach conditions, as far out as we can.
All right. Well, moving on, we also, a lot of our stakeholders were interested in establishing a friends group, which is great. Friends groups often are wonderful tools to help support the park, not only for new projects, but also for some of those stewardship projects that occur at the park, and also, education, so everything is a great collaborative effort, and the more we can do together, the stronger and better the park will be. Another goal with regards to management was adding a janitorial position. The next section is capital outlay projects. These are projects that are really focused on larger, more expensive projects that need to be done, really with regards to replacing aging infrastructure that our stakeholders and our public has identified. So we're looking at replacing the Woodstock toilet shower building, renovating the beach bathhouse in the day use area, replacing the HVAC system in the Pines toilet shower building, implementing an automated parking notification system. Sean touched on that, which would also double as providing warnings for the beach. Extending the channel access pathway to Lake Michigan, recognizing that we have large fluctuations in water levels that we need to take into consideration. Replacing the contact station, that's the booth that you see when you first get into the park, with something that is accessible. That's an older structure prior to the Americans with Disabilities Act went into effect. Upgrading the electrical service at the Lake Makatawa campground to accommodate larger electrical use. Some of the smaller infrastructure improvements that we're looking at are determining the feasibility of an adaptive reuse of the park manager's residence building. That right now is just being used for storage. And we'd like to see if there's possibilities for doing anything with that building, or if it would cost more to renovate as opposed to just removing. We do need to replace the roof of the cold storage building in the headquarters building. We have heard that shade is an issue at the beach playground, so we're looking at possibly doing something there to accommodate shade. And the fence along the campground, the Makatawa campground, along the road, we're looking at replacing that with something possibly a little bit more attractive. The fence that's there right now is old, and it's starting to show its age. The fourth category, partner projects. So these are working collaboratively with Ottawa County and Park Township and our other outside partners, looking into that shuttle service exploration. It would obviously take a lot of planning, but we're definitely open to looking at something like that. And coordinating with Park Township on the pedestrian crossings along Ottawa Beach Road. That's something that I know has been in the works for quite some time. So we want to continue to move forward with that as well. So now comes your opportunity to tell us what you think, and there are several ways to do that. At the end of this meeting, we do have an online survey link that will ask you a few questions regarding the goals. And you can obviously go to that right now if you wanted to, because I have the link right there, but it will be sent to all attendees of the meeting after this meeting. So look in your mailbox tomorrow for that link. You can also email myself. There's my email address. I've already received several comments, so we appreciate those. Because like I said, the more comments, the better. So you can certainly email us those. If you want to view the Phase 2 management plan draft, that is available at our management plan website. That's shown there. Just scroll down to Holland State Park. You can also view the Phase 1 plan that was done in 2010. And you can get to all of these via the park website as well. So if you go to michigan.gov/Holland, that will get you to the park website, the Holland State Park website. So with that, I think we can open up the floor to questions right now. But again, there's certainly opportunity to provide more comments and questions and ask more questions after the meeting is concluded.
Okay, so we do have a lot of questions, so bear with us as we go through them. I will try to group them as best I can. So the first is from Howard Fink, the township manager for Park Township. He's commenting on 3 primary issues: parking, general safety, and water safety. So we'll start with the parking. What are the state's plans for increasing parking at the park? I'm aware that there will never be enough parking. Park Township has done some designs on how to provide additional parking along Ottawa Beach Road across the street from the main campground. We would like additional parking, particularly some of the expansions at the beach area. Oh, that's a repeat, I think. Also requesting the digital sign to be located at the boat ramp, informing if the parking area is full so that people have a place to turn around. And it sounds like that is in the works. Any other response to the parking?
I guess I could just jump in by saying that, yes, parking is certainly an issue. And one of the reasons it's an issue is we don't have any ability to expand the parking in the day use area because of the critical dunes. So while it may look like we have lots of land there, we're not able to really touch that because of the critical dunes present in the area. Sean, I don't know if you want to add on to anything on that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the plan that Howard's talking about for expanded parking, and that's over in the what we call the Campers Beach or the Lake Macatawa day use area, and that's that natural resource zone. So I don't think, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that's meant to have further development in that area. That's that natural area along Lake Macatawa that we've talked about before.
Yeah, this is Joe. I think by putting a sign, a sign that'll explain to people before they get close to the park that the parking's full is going to hopefully resolve, or at least notify folks that the parking lots are full and to go find alternative beach areas. That's I think just educating the people. That there isn't any parking available at that point in time is the route we're going at this point.
Yeah, and also, we certainly do want to explore the potential for possible shuttle service. So yeah, talk to us after the meeting, and maybe we can work something. We can start that ball rolling.
And just
if I may offer one more comment on this topic. A fortunate side effect of what's gone on with COVID and the fact that we've had a less staff to work with here, we've kind of been forced into being more creative with the way we turn traffic, and we've had some other things come out of it, like instead of turning traffic away and then people just continue to get on the carousel and come back down. We were actually closing the park for a half hour at a time and just telling folks we're going to be closed until this time, try and come back after that time. That would allow us to empty the park a little bit more, and then I think it also helps reduce the lines a little bit. So we're going to be talking with Gary when he comes back and maybe closing that as an idea. Maybe closing it for a longer period, maybe an hour at a time when we have traffic backups. Something that we can help reduce that line and maybe allow the residents in that area or the campers that are coming down to the beach an opportunity to get in there and get to their places when there's those lulls in the traffic. And we're hoping to see if that'll help out a little bit.
Yeah, the other thought, this is Joe again, that on a bigger perspective, Holland's not the only park that has full parking lots over the weekends. It starts south at Van Buren State Park. They have parking issues on the weekends. Saugatuck Dunes State Park, Holland State Park, and Grand Haven State Park. They're all packed on the weekends. So it's just a common occurrence with people wanting to get to the beach on the weekends.
Mm-hmm. And that
Yeah, and we've also got an unfortunate fact that Ottawa Beach Road is the only way in and out, one lane in each direction, so that makes things difficult.
Okay, I do see that Robert has a hand up. We can unmute people and let them talk. I do want to get through the rest of these questions that we have first, though, and see if we have some time available for people to speak, because we do have a lot of questions. So I'm not ignoring you. Just bear with us as we go through this. So some of the other questions as far as safety, and again, I will try and group these. Bruce said, with many deaths or near deaths each year, why are lifeguards not part of this plan? Howard, regarding safety, the township is working with stakeholder groups to improve water safety at the park. There are numerous issues at play. Please consider a wave break or riptide break to improve the rip currents and possible drowning incidents. And another concern is that if there are things like a dangerous weather event, there's only one exit out of the area. So should there be like a safety backup? And I'll just read one more on that issue and see if there's anything else that we want to add on that. What are some things that will be implemented to increase the safety of visitors at the park? And Sean has mentioned a lot about that. Let me see if I can summarize. I know there have been other drownings and many near drownings over the past several years, and it's heartbreaking, obviously. So what can we do to help that? I personally think lifeguards could help, and a strong fence around the pier to help prevent people from being swept off the pier by a giant wave, in addition to more signage. So I don't know, Sean, do you have anything else to add? I know you've already told us a lot about what we are doing right now.
I'm not sure. I know I believe I've heard well before my time that state parks did have lifeguards in them at one time. I'm not sure why they went away from that, and I'm not sure what the division stance is moving forward with that. That's definitely something that's going to be above my pay grade, but it's a discussion I'm certainly willing to take up and have with them. But I also know, I started out in public service. My first job was as a lifeguard when I was in high school. And I spent 7 years in the Coast Guard, and I know the power of water. And strictly in my personal opinion, in the conditions where we've had the majority of our fatalities, as a supervisor, I would not want to send my lifeguards into that kind of situation, because then I'm inviting a possible fatality on their part. I know out on the California coast where they have large towers and they have equipment like ski-doos and surf rescue boats, stuff like that. Going out in that kind of conditions is more tolerable. I'm just not sure, where we would fit in on that scheme of things. Again, it's not, I don't want to close the door on it. Any topic to me is a good topic to talk about, but I know people are passionate about bringing lifeguards back, but I just don't know how feasible it is, to be honest. And that's just because I'm not the one that gets to make that decision. Again, like I said, I know the power of water, and I would hate dearly to send lifeguards out into these situations with such a high possibility that they could become a fatality as well. So, but again, we want to have a discussion. We want to move this ball forward. So, if you have those ideas, go ahead and bring them to me by email or by phone, and I will gladly take them through my upline and have this conversation.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's move on and see what other questions we have here. Steve said, as demand for the park increases during the summer months, please consider closing the camping area adjacent to the beach. The camping area near the beach could be eliminated during the peak summer months. For example, the camping area near the beach could be closed from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Camping could be designated for the Makatawa camping only in the summer, and during those peak times, it could be open for cars and day users. I know there's a lot of... Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Joe. You know, but those lakefront campsites are extremely popular. Sean would have a better handle of you know, where they rank statewide, but you know, to kind of, if that increases parking, we're going to have just as many complaints with us taking out the camping. So maybe one of those things where you fix one problem and create one or two others. So, but it's a good thought, you know.
Yeah,
It's a very interesting thought, but I kind of agree with Joe. I mean, that's our original campground. When the park was founded, that's where people camped, was right here on Lake Michigan. So to do away with that area for camping during the peak season, I think we would, not sure we would be helping ourselves out a whole lot.
And our mission also is, you know, to have people to be able to have camping access close to the beach, close to Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes, and that's one of the opportunities where they can be right on the waterfront almost.
okay. Concerning the 10-year action goals, could a walking or bike trail be established in the woods or sand dunes off the road between the Makatawa campground and Lake Michigan? I thought that there is a bike trail there next to the road. I'm not sure that we have the ability to go any further off the roads into the wooded areas. The sand dunes are pretty much off limits because of the designated critical dunes. Am I misunderstanding that one? Anyone else have anything to say?
We do have some trails in there, but yeah, they don't go directly to the other unit via the dunes. You have to get out onto the road to do that.
Yeah, I think there's just enough private property in between us and the Lake Mac unit and Lake Michigan unit. I know most of it crosses county property, but I think there's just enough private property that kind of keeps us from doing that. And it's certainly because of the critical dune. I don't think we would want to have anything more than a simple hiking trail. The small trails that we do have right now are hiking only, no bikes are allowed on them. So, it's an interesting thought, though. Definitely a conversation worth having with Ottawa County and taking a look at that.
Yeah, and Steve did elaborate on that a little bit, that potentially there could be some cooperation with private property owners also to find a route. Let me see what else we have here. We talked about the PA system. Is that definitely going to go ahead, Sean? And do you have a timeline for that, or are we still looking for funding at this time?
Joe, do you have maybe you've got a better answer than I do. I know it's something we are moving forward on. It's going to happen, but it's unfortunately something that's not going to be immediate. We're still in the process right now.
Yeah, we sent it out for public bid, and we didn't receive any bids back about 2 weeks ago. So I'm contacting more additional firms to see if they're interested in submitting a bid after the fact, and then we also may look at figuring out maybe the DNR purchases the PR equipment, and then we find a contractor to do the actual installation. So our goal is to have a PA system operational by spring of next year for the use season for next year. Even if we did have successful bids, even if we did have a low bid about 2 weeks ago, the installation wouldn't have been completed until October sometime after the use season this year. So either way, we're looking at for an installation for the spring of next year.
Okay, and a different kind of safety issue from Howard Fink. He's interested in a hardened shelter, like a storm shelter at the park, recognizing that if there were to be a weather emergency, it would be very hard to get people out in a reasonable amount of time. I don't believe that's in the plan right now. I don't know if that is anything that's been talked about or considered.
Well, I mean, we can certainly explore it.
Yeah, that's as far as I'm concerned, I think that wouldn't be a bad thing to add in. That would definitely be a good thing. As a matter of fact, and maybe add to our plan to see if we could get something. I guess the only question would be trying to determine how large of a structure, where to place it. Obviously, we're not going to be able to fit on a busy day everybody that's on the beach into a structure without it being probably the size of the beach. But given bad weather usually chases some of our guests away, it would be nice to have something in case of emergency to get as many people in as possible. So
Yeah,
future for our beach bathhouse, maybe in the long term, maybe we can look at replacing that with something that's definitely more weather resistant.
Yeah, it might be something as we renovate these these buildings. We might want to. It's something we could probably take a look at.
Okay, and then a question, curious if the south side of the channel is private or if there is a strip that is accessible to the public.
As far as I know, there is a strip that's not private, but you have to go through private property to get to it. And I know that there's a guardhouse over there, and I know that they allow some people through on certain days and certain times to get out to Big Red to actually see Big Red up close, but it's not open all the time by any means. I think the only way to access the public area over there is by boat from the water.
Okay, well, we are at time. We do have more questions on lifeguards. Are you going to hire lifeguards? Just obviously a lot of concern out there about safety. As Sean has said, we are looking at all options. I don't think anything's off the table right now, but we're focusing on some other informational things at this time. One more interested comment. I'm interested in perhaps creating a boat ferry service from downtown to the state park. I think that helps parking and provides improved economic revenue to downtown. Can you give me guidance on who I should talk to? I'm pleased to see that question because it did come up as a suggestion from us in the planning, and we weren't sure if it was feasible or not. But I would suggest to contact Sean at the park. We do have someone we work with on a concession contract and that kind of thing. But sounds like an interesting option to get people off the road. I would just add that, another point to the park is, and why we had it in there, was to look at capacity at the park. How many people can we serve safely there? And, is there a point when, even if we can get more people in, is it going to lead to a, less meaningful visit for everybody there? So I'll just throw that one out there, but I don't know if you have anything to add on the idea of a ferry service, Sean, and what how would you look into that?
Yeah, you can go ahead and contact me again, probably email on that, and I will probably get you in contact with Lori Ruff, who does our commercial agreements. Off the top of my head, the one thing I'd be trying to figure out is where we would moor a ferry if it was coming. The only really property that we kind of control is along the channel, and that's a navigable waterway. I'm not sure what the rules are on mooring up in that area. Maybe a safer bet would be mooring up just outside of the park along the county's Black Lake Boardwalk. So maybe partnering with the county might be a better option. And then, offload there, and people would certainly be able to walk into the park from that point without having to travel that much further. So, but yeah, you go ahead and send me an email on it, and we'll start to look into it. Can't hurt.
Okay. We just have one more question, and then I think we'll let Matt kind of wrap it up as to how we can, complete this process. If I haven't asked all of the questions, I apologize. There's a lot there. I'm trying to kind of group them and not be duplicative. We do get all these questions in writing, so they will be part of the plan. And Matt will explain how you can follow up and get answers if you didn't get answers to this. But this is kind of the last one we have here. I realize this is a county issue. What about flashing lights at the crossroads on Ottawa Beach Road? And also signage that it's a state law to stop for pedestrians. Most people are ignorant of stopping for pedestrians. And if I'm not mistaken, there is a Park Township proposal to improve the crossings on that road.
Yeah, actually, they've already made improvements. They've got a lit crosswalk at our boat access site at Lake Macatawa, and then they also have another one right out of our Lake Macatawa campground going across the street to the Campers Beach. And then they also increased signage and crossover points up and down Ottawa Beach Road along the park, and then between the residents, in between the Lake Mac unit and Lake Michigan unit. So those improvements have already been made. Maybe adding the signage for the state law wouldn't be a bad idea. I know Howard's on the call, so maybe he can contact his friends over at the Road Commission and maybe make that request to them.
Okay, so we are a little past 7. So in the interest of everyone's time, Matt, if you want to wrap it up.
Yeah, oops, sorry. Again, these are several ways that you can get a hold of us. The next steps that we have for this plan is we are going to take the comments that we received today, as well as the comments that you will be giving us through the survey that will be coming out tomorrow via, as that link shows. And the emails that were also received. I believe you have another week or so to get those to us to be included in as part of the plan or be considered as part of the plan. And so then our team will meet again and review all of the comments received and make any changes to the plan as may be necessary before we finalize it. So yes, thank you for your input. There's a lot of good ideas out there, and we look forward to working with everybody as we move forward.
Thank you very much for your participation. We appreciate you spending your time on this sunny evening. And with that, we will end the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.